if the shoe fits. What we're talking about today is ginger as a social construct. And we're going to talk about spiders a little bit too. So take notes if you need to. Look at your quiz prompt. Because this is kind of a confusing subject for a lot of us. The idea that ginger is shaped by where you live, it's shaped by your society, by your culture. Confusing, right? So let's talk about spiders for a second. So there's 3,000 species of spiders in North America. Of all of those spiders, there's only one species that's considered really dangerous, and that's the Lactrodectus. I know I didn't say it right. So 3,000 species of spiders. Out of all those species, 4 people die from venomous spider bites a year in the United States. So out of 3,000 species, 4 people die. We don't want anybody to die, but here's the population as of 2019. So 4 people out of that amount die from spider bites. So the question is, why are we so afraid of spiders? Why don't we like spiders? Or even love them? Look. So arachnophobia is the fear of spiders, right? And the points on here I think are interesting, that the fear of spiders is not a global fear. Down on the third one, it says it's more of a cultural fear, right? So these fears tend to run in families, passed down to kids, and on and on and on. And many cultures love spiders and think they're good luck, think they're delicious, right? So arachnophobia is constructed by culture and society as well, because there's a whole lot of people that are jumpy about spiders in the United States. So that means gender socialization, kind of like the fear of spiders, arachnophobia, is something that is developed in a culture. And for us in our culture specifically, because that's what I'm talking about, is that we learn how to be a certain way based on what our society, our culture expects of us. Just like right from the get-go, that is more of uh, socialization versus biological stuff, right? So obviously we're born with a certain set of genitalia. So what I'm saying is the idea of what you're supposed to be as a girl or a woman, a boy or a man, is determined pretty much by your culture. And we talk about that a lot in here. So cultural construction of gender. Sex is biologically determined, gender is culturally determined. So different cultures, different societies have ideas about what it means to be female or male. Certainly in our global world now, a lot of that merges, but there's specifically ideas, and those change over periods of time. And they start really, really quickly, really soon in our society, right? These gender reveal parties, yes. This the minute that we ask, are you a boy or a girl? Are you a girl or a boy? We learn our gender roles by this socialization. So our society teaches us how to be a certain way, and it's just perpetuated by family, peer group, schools, media. Everything around us bombards us with messages as to how we're supposed to purport ourselves as females or males, right? Family is a really great example of that. I mean, this was a Christmas card, and haha, it's kind of funny, right? But it really tells a very specific message here. Peace on earth is by virtue of literally duct taping all of the females' mouths in the society, not society, in the family, and tying them up with Christmas lights. Who has the most power in this family? Obviously, the father, the man, but look who has the second most. The smallest member of the family, who happens to be a boy. These are really strong messages, and they're just generated just everywhere you look in our society. This was from one of your articles, the idea that especially for white middle class American parents, female infants are like, as soon as they're born, they're just, oh, they're so much sweeter and softer and frail. They're so much more fragile than boys, right? Slap that little bow on it and you know what I'm talking about. Here's an example. This is a toddler, not even a preschool kid I took care of in Sacramento a number of years ago named Jax. It's like, so her family, this is what her mother dresses her up for a solid day of rigorous play in a preschool program, right? And there's just so much wrong with this. This little thing that she has on, Jax had to adjust that little strap all day long. Her little cute sandals that light up, she tripped in because they weren't good running shoes. There's just ways that family imparts the idea of how a girl is supposed to act in this world, and it literally hobbles them. Peer pressure, peer groups for sure are another way of imparting what girls should do and what boys should do, for sure. Um, Again, from the article, as soon as kids are old enough to have peers outside of the home, kids began to look for cues from their peers as to how they're supposed to act. Here's a great example from my preschool from about a year ago. So, what is wrong with this picture? It takes a minute, maybe, until you've been around me long enough. But simply, here's three boys playing with a pretty cool manipulative that I have. And look at the colors they're electing not to use. Well, the kingpin is the lower left kid right there. And he is saying that he doesn't like purple and pink because those are girls' colors. So he has some followers here who were fine about purple and pink until they got into my preschool to a certain degree, because they know now that they can't play with those because those are girls' colors, less than what boys do. Boys' stuff is good and girl stuff is bad. And Margaret Mead said it a million years ago that sometimes that's how you bring up your kids, especially your boys. Teach them not to be female. So there's lots of messages out there that demonstrate how males are more important and have got all the swagger and doing all the things. And I'm not suggesting that you can't have those kind of images, but if you're bombarded with those images as a female, then it really does chip away at what your idea is as to how you should be female in this world. And this is a big educational magazine. All sorts of teachers and educators use this kind of stuff. And again, you're probably going to see now what's wrong with this picture. The boy is doing all the activities and the girl is gazing down the boy doing the activities. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at your friends and encourage them and praise them, but these messages are out there more than you think, way more than you think. And it's perpetuated in all sorts of things. So here's the woman looking at the guy who's looking through the binoculars at something really cool. Like, at least look out to what the really cool thing is. But this kind of stuff is all over the place. So what we do to boys is we teach them to undervalue girl stuff, because girl stuff is diminished and not considered as important in our society. And then that puts girls and boys at odds and really leaves girls in like a crummy place. But it also leaves boys in a crummy place too, because they can't do some of the cool things that girls can do and get away with. Another example from my preschool. So I just do a dance party every morning typically, kind of to start the day out. And I don't expect anyone to dance, but they can, and they can use scarves. And I just put on some pretty good music that I like. And you'll see that girls are dancing in this picture. And what has happened is the boys have just automatically push themselves off to the edge of this dance circle, and they're just hanging out. And again, I don't say you have to dance, but we're pretty lively, but they automatically consider themselves not part of this festivity. So again, it's and look at how, I mean, it's like they're being tortured while the rest of us are dancing. And I mean, I'm not saying that you got to dance, but not to have that option, and your peers telling you it's not a good idea to dance as a boy is a really sad situation. And that's the way that we construct gender. We do it in schools really big time. So teachers' behavior, the kind of curriculum they use, the way that they maybe rank boys or listen boys differently than girls, and we'll be talking about that more, really helps put girls in a certain place that's not as great as boys. So I think this is so interesting, and we talk about a little bit later in Rethink Pink, the idea that how we socialize girls, for example, we literally hamper them. You saw Jax with her little jumper thing on that she had to adjust all day. We have girls, with skirts on there having to switch around, or their hair's in ponytails or in barrettes that have to be managed all the time. And so the idea is that girls are just kind of really locked into this space, and boys have so much more freedom and therefore more power. It's just really crazy how girls and boys move differently in schools. I think you know what I mean. And another thing in school, that the boys get more attention because they demand it, and that's okay to demand that. They get more active feedback from their teachers. They get more complicated instructions from their teachers, and more opportunities to reason about things, trial and error. And girls, they just know that they're not going to get as much, maybe, and they expect less, and they get less, and it's really a crummy deal. We'll be talking about that more later. So media, another way to socialization, right? So that happens through all sorts of stuff: books, video games, movies, magazines, advertisement, television, all of it. We're bombarded with what is considered to be appropriate for females in our society and for males. And you know what I'm talking about. Strong, strong messages there. Easy to recount a bunch of things in terms of the statistics as to how much more representation males get in all of our stories. In toys, this is a pretty easy one and a pretty obvious one for us to look at. And this changed a little bit, but it still stays really, really gendered, even though Target got rid of their pink aisles and blue aisles, and they're kind of, um, doing gender neutral sort of titles for some of their games and toys, but it's still really there big time. And you can look when you shop for boys, their toys are like so much cooler than girls' toys. They get to do so many different things, right? They're building and they're exploring and they're rebuilding and experimenting. And a lot of times this is still happening. Girls are getting domestic toys to play with, to get them ready for their role as, a mother and a caretaker, or to look beautiful. So the deal with all of this, which you already know, is that boys get this expansive choice of expanding their imagination in their minds. And it's a really cool thing. And it's a really cool thing, right? But a lot of the toys dedicated to girls are more domestic in nature. And there's a real, that's really bad. I think you're going to agree with that. So go to the moon and beyond, or wash your clothes, right? And it's interesting, things are changing. They've added some pink Legos, for example, but things are changing, and girls are asking for more. I love this letter that a little girl, Charlotte, sent to Lego, and it says, "Dear Lego Company, my name is Charlotte. I am 7 years old and I love Legos, but I don't like that there are more Lego boy people and barely any Lego girls. Today I went to a store and saw Legos in two sections. The pink, the girls pink and the boys blue. All the girls did was sit at home, go to the beach and shop. And they had no jobs, but the boys went on adventures, worked, saved people, and had jobs, even swam with sharks. I want you to make more Lego girl people and let them go on adventures and have fun. Okay? Thank you, Charlotte." Big stuff, right? Because a lot of the Legos that are dedicated to male, look at all the cool things they get to go do. The girl's got her bling on, or the woman has her bling on, and look at all the stuff they're doing. These are older ones. And they have come up with a few things. Here's an archaeologist, for example, for girls, but there are really not too many around. So the deal is that look at this. Studies reveal that 3-year-old girls are already highly invested in their body image, and they're eager perpetuators of continuing to look like what girls are supposed to look like, right? The stereotypes of it. And it's because they're bombarded, right? They're bombarded with the idea that this is what girls are supposed to be. And I'm not saying you can't glimmed up and, bedazzle and get your bling on, but other messages, other images need to be out there. Research indicates that girls already know that they're not cutting it. They're not being where they need to be. So look at that 87% of girls think women are judged on appearance, not ability. And they're going to be going down that same road, right? This study just kind of kills me. So 80% of 10-year-old girls have been on a diet already. They're 10 years old and they're already on diets. Ages 6 to 8 want thinner bodies. That's just what a message. And again, we want to talk about health. I'm not saying that we can't have some of these messages, but we need to have more of these kind of messages. We need the images we need media and schools and family and peers and all that kind of just change the story, right? And realize that there's other ways to purport yourself as a girl, as a female in our society. And it's a big, hard thing to overcome all of this gender construction. And we're going to talk about it all semester. And won't that be great? Sometimes it's really kind of depressing. But that's what we're doing in this class. And I think that hopefully that kind of gives you a better idea of how gender is kind of shaped in our culture. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.